So, John?
Yeah?
We going to start?
I'm trying to find out when the events are happening here.
What events? What's that?
The events in the park. This, John, is called a newspaper.
It's a newspaper?
This is made of paper. The images, if you touch them, will play, but they don't play video like I thought they would. No. But you can make them bigger if you pinch and zoom.
You can pinch it. Okay.
But no, this is where I found out the events, because this is probably what I was handed when I walked into a lot of parks. So this is where I want to find the events. And actually, there is events in here, and they're pretty good.
What happens if I'm not there, though?
Or if you're planning to come there?
Like if I'm here?
What do you mean if you're here?
Well, what park is this?
This is Yellowstone.
I can't go to that from here.
That's right, you can't get this there, here.
So what do I do if I want to plan an event without this in my hand?
I don't know. Or if you're not in the park, what if you wanted more information from what's the event that's in here?
You're not good at play acting.
Yeah.
Anyways, hi folks, how's it going? Improv is not our strongest suit today. Hope everybody's doing well out there in the digital world. I'd like to welcome everybody. It says we got 5 or 11 viewers-ish. That's great. I'm sure that number will probably pop up, and we're probably catching some of you folks out there in the aftermath after this has been kind of socked into the interwebs, and it's there for all of you to watch afterwards. So great to have you here, whether you're watching live or you're watching from a delay. Welcome to Mather Training Center. I'm John Rudy with the Interpretive Development Program.
And I'm John Tobiason with the Harpers Ferry Center, and I'm with the Digital Media section.
Digital Media section.
Or whatever we do.
Yeah, we got to come up with a really slick office title for you. Slap it on your window over there. So today our title is Doing Stuff and Things, just like Rick does. Events and ephemeral interpretation. So how do we do interpretation for those events? The stuff that we got listed in our park newspaper, both the kind of everyday events and then really those special events that you might have crop up on your calendar once in, say, 100 years or so. Seems like the Park Service has got one of those coming up just in a couple years. But I think every park has those events that pop up once every few years that you really want to highlight and help visitors to experience. So today we're going to talk a little bit about well, how you help folks come in to the park from a distance, how you help them physically visit those special ephemeral events, and don't necessarily tie them to having to walk through your gate, but they can walk through your digital gate as well.
And we're going to tell you about how they can get more information when they're actually at the park,
right,
and how you could set up an event so that people that are also there or want to be there could be there.
So really we're talking about doing stuff. So let's get right down to doing it. That sound like a good plan?
Sounds good.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen here and pop up our first chunk of PowerPoint. Hopefully everybody can see that out there in the wide world. Really, when we're talking about events, we're talking about well, those exciting things that we do as park communities, both exciting for us, exciting for the folks that are in those events, but also kind of exciting for our visitors as well. These are different. These are weird things that we often do, whether it's a anniversary event or an event focusing on a specific time period or a specific biome or a specific animal. I can imagine you having an eagle weekend or a bear weekend. I can imagine you having an 1812 weekend or a Civil War weekend as well. So these are moments of excitement for our visitors. They are inherently ephemeral. So they are inherently about, well, things that don't happen all the time. That may mean that they're about the 3 o'clock cemetery program that only happens at 3 o'clock. But it may also mean that it's the 1812 event that your park does 2 days out of the year. The holidays event that happened 2 weekends in December. These are events that aren't necessarily completely repeatable by an average park visitor. So these are the things that happen that one weekend, at one day maybe, or maybe that 1 hour. And how do you make that event, that thing that's happening kind of in that tiny little moment, how do you make that an experience that anyone can have? So I have been trying to think about how to do this, and I came up with this kind of easy little chart. It's a quadrant grid with 2 scales on it. We got the little and the big event. John's going to cover those in just a minute. We've got the formal and the informal. And those, I'm not talking about the event necessarily, but the style of coverage for the event. How do you want to interpret this event? You can do it in a very formal way, or you can do it in very informal ways, and anywhere along that spectrum. So let's look at this kind of from the 2 ends of the 2 extremes of the spectrum, and then realize that we can mix and match some of the chunks. So is it going to be formal or informal? Is it going to be, well, the kind of funky way to put this, is it going to be canned, or is it going to be spontaneous? Is it going to be something that you produce ahead of time, or is it going to be something you produce on the fly in the moment? So there's our spectrum again. So the extreme end of the formal spectrum. So this is kind of, I don't think anyone would ever do this at this extreme, but it's good to know kind of where the polar extreme is. Every post is pre-planned for this event. So let's say you're having a weekend where you're commemorating the 1812 events in your park. Every post would be pre-planned by the hour or the half hour or the 15 minutes. Every tweet would be pre-planned. Every post to Instagram would be preloaded into a system. The language would be crafted ahead of time through drafting. So you would draft out the language. You would redraft and ask for input from John, from the person across the hall, from your wife, from your husband, from your kids, depending on what kind of target you're aiming for. The photos are carefully chosen ahead of time. So these photos are probably things that you've got in your park files. They may be historic photographs, but they also may be things that you shoot last week for the event coming up next week, just to make sure you've got a picture of this porch or this tree or this stream. So that's the one polar extreme for when we're thinking about events and planning out exactly what's going to happen. The other polar extreme is the informal end. Every post would be composed on the fly. So that means you don't plan out functionally anything, but instead let the event sort of speak for itself. This is a democracy of the event. Language would be drafted as things are happening. So that means that you've got folks out in the field who have a iDevice or an Android device that's typing away and actually drafting interpretive sentences and interpretive moments on the fly. And it means that photos are taken in the moment and instantly uploaded. And that's really the extreme of the informal event. So we got 2 extremes, these kind of 2 polar opposites. We have the very, very structured and pre-planned, and the very, very unstructured and completely on the fly. I don't think any of these would ever happen in a park on one end of the extreme of the other, but we can mix or match pieces. So what would this look like in a park? Well, the formal end looks like those SWAT team models we've seen for a lot of special events recently, kind of bringing in a team of experts to craft a bunch of stuff and get it in the system and get it ready to go. You'd use tools like Hootsuite or scheduling Facebook posts, and a lot of this would be kind of done in the days before the event, loaded into the system, and then let it fly and walk away. That's really what this really structured formal event looks like. The informal event, well, it's a bunch of rangers with iPhones. It's a bunch of rangers out there on mobile connections and able to draft things and alter and shift on the fly. So when you're looking at a formal event, kind of that really structured thing, it gives you a lot of great benefits. I mean, I think one of the most important ones is the fact that you can cohesively develop a relevant idea. That's Interpretive Development Program jargon for really bring together all of the interpretive elements. They help to push towards 1 or 2 key interpretive goals. So you can fully develop these interpretive opportunities to be cohesive. And one of the really important things here is that when you pre-plan all of your posts, you can vet all your posts. which means you can run it by your public relations officer. You can run them by the superintendent, maybe even, for a really exciting and important event, or maybe a really controversial event, just to make sure everybody's on the same page in what's being said. They can still be collaboratively developed, and in fact, it's a lot easier to collaboratively develop these types of posts, particularly because you've got months to plan out the content, which means that I don't have to text John and say, hey John, do you think this would be cool to post in 5 minutes, and hope that he gets back to me. Instead, we've got some planning time built into this. You can make sure that your content is evenly distributed. And what I mean by that is that you don't necessarily have to have, if you're having in your park a presentation at 2 o'clock, you don't have to have all of the content centered around that VIP coming into the park and giving you an award or presenting a new monument. Instead, you can spread that out across the day. It's not reliant on what's happening in the physical resource to make the bow. You can also thematically link things and strategically focus them, which means that you can work with other divisions maybe to make sure that not only are you fulfilling an interpretive goal, but you're also fulfilling resource management goals and visitor protection goals, really to create synergy within our divisions and cause, well, not only meaning making, that's what interpreters are really aiming for, but also some of those side benefits from meaning making. You know, the fact that folks are getting in trouble less, or they're having trouble less, or they're finding out where they need to go, or they're not literate. What does a formal interpretive event look like? Well, the most recent one that we've had float through the Diginterp streams has been Boston's event done by Jocelyn Gould on the anniversary of the Battle of Bunker Hill. And this was a really cool event. Jocelyn worked with a bunch of posts to craft the language, to work the language through, had a running Google document, was asking folks for input and for some kind of bouncing ideas off of them, see how things rang. She got some folks from inside the park. She also asked a few of us here at Mather to help out with her, to take a glance at some of the content, and we were able to beef it up and make it into something that was extremely powerful. So she posted on the Boston Facebook page regularly, about every half an hour during this event. And the Battle of Bunker Hill, for any of you that aren't Rev War folks, I'm not the biggest Rev War person, but the Battle of Bunker Hill takes place, the actual battle part, in about half an hour. But the lead up for the battle is about a 12 to 15 hour strung out affair that happens over the course of midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock hours, as men are digging in entrenchments on Breed's Hill above Charleston in Boston Harbor. So this is an event that happens in the dead of night. Jocelyn's not on the schedule at the dead of night, which means that inherently some of this stuff had to be pre-planned. And most of it ended up being entered in the system ahead of time and just kind of plug and play, let it go. Push the button and let the event fly. This is a post that went up as day broke. This is actually 4:25 in the morning. This post went up. And you can see it. It's a pretty good post. We've got that map there. That's a map of our battlefield. That's where the rest of the events of the day are going to be held, kind of virtually held in our minds at least. And then a good chunk of text over there about the artillery that's firing on Breed's Hill. As far as effectiveness, for a post that goes up at 4:25 in the morning, it's got 37 likes total. You notice that my screenshots are a little bit different than the data that's on here. That's because some of these likes came from shares, and some of the shares were private. That's why I can't see a lot of the stuff that Jocelyn has some data on in the back end. So 37 likes, 7 comments, 12 shares, and the reach was 653 people for a post that went up at 4:25 in the morning, which you wouldn't necessarily think that's our sweet spot for posting things, but well, it got shared around, it got pushed into streams, and it looks like there were a lot of particularly some Revolutionary War geeks that were playing hard with this stuff. Second post, this happened just shortly after that one, so we're still in the early wee hours of the morning. This one that's a period engraving of Asa Pollard after he's been killed. And the text there, a scream rends the air. Asa Pollard's been killed, decapitated by a cannonball. The day's first casualty has been recorded. Suddenly this battle, this war, is all too real. Some men start to seek the safety of Bunker Hill. Unkind compatriots might call it a retreat. See this one, got 3 public shares, got actually 4 total shares. There were 20 likes on it. Its reach was about 414, which doesn't sound like a huge number to us that are used to viral content and to thousands and millions of YouTube video hits. But you have to remember that this is 5 a.m. in the morning. How many visitors are there on Breeds Hill, on Bunker Hill, at 5 a.m. in the morning, getting this kind of content, having this kind of moment with the resource? Probably not that many. So this is 414 folks who got a chance to see this and maybe had an interpretive connection happen here that wouldn't necessarily have had this moment. Another great one. This one is, I think, the most effective of all of the opportunities. Can you check the Facebook streams just to make sure we're doing okay here, John? Make sure our comments are flowing and that nobody's having any problems. So this one is this marching redcoats, and it's calling back to some of the earlier opportunities that have been laid out through the day. Peter Brown is one of the militiamen we've been introduced to, and now we're taking the British perspective. And this one got a lot of good numbers. Had 50 likes, 11 comments, 8 shares for a total reach of 871 people seeing this. That's a pretty good post. Pretty good for that day, and pretty good for Boston in general. I think it's a striking image, and it's a striking story that goes along with that image. The two really play well off of one another. And it got some shares from some members of the reenacting unit. They're actually in the photo too, which might be a great way to increase your potential. Is to well, have folks share it on their personal pages, whether they're park volunteers or park employees. Okay, so now we have a pair of them, and this pair is really interesting. This is later on in the day. Dr. Joseph Warren, one of the commanders in the Breeds Hill redoubt, is killed. And here's 2 posts about that. The first one is this period engraving. So here, this is posted at the exact moment in the day that he was shot. Dr. Warren, shot through the face. He collapses as the British troops clear the redoubt and chase stragglers as they race for the safety of Bunker Hill and the Charlestown Neck. It's a really kind of striking post, striking moment in the battle. We've got 5 likes, 1 share, a reach of about 93. So it's not the most stellar post in terms of performance for the day. But then immediately after it was this post. As Dr. Warren breathes his last atop Breeds Hill, his 4 children are oblivious to what's happening. A bullet has crashed through his brain, but its impact will shatter their hearts. Tomorrow news reaches Elizabeth, the eldest, that her father is gone. The 4 are alone in the world now, orphans. But today, for one last fleeting moment, the children are safe and unaware of the tragedy to come. What's really powerful about that one is that photo. That image is just striking. It's strikingly violent, and it helps transport you to this moment in time. And really, for this event, we're talking about the event being a moment. And it also pairs off kind of incongruently with that text. You have Joseph Warren lying dead on the battlefield. Obviously, it's not that heroic of a death to look at him like this with the blood spattered across his face. And then his children and the impact of that blood spatter. It's a powerful, powerful post. And it saw a powerful, powerful reach. 28 likes, 2 comments, 5 shares, for a total reach of about 544 people seeing this opportunity. Another one here. Charlestown Heights have been secured. This is another of those striking images from Dreamer Comic. And likewise, the reach on that was amazing. 105 likes, 8 comments, 11 shares. Total reach on that was 1,010 when you take into account all of the other chunks and all of the other ways that folks get this content. And here we go. Here's the last one from the Boston experiment. Just a stock image that we've got in the park of a doctor treating wounded, and you add that layer of meaning on top. The streets of Boston are filled with the wounded and dying. When combined with the weeping of their wives and children, it creates a haunting scene. Can the British Army afford another battle at this cost? Will the colonists continue to fight? Only questions can be found tonight. No answers. 25 likes and 2 shares, 388 total eyeballs resting upon that image and that interpretive text. All told, there was a huge reach for this. 11,000 people saw these posts. That's not 11,000 individuals, that's 11,000 people. So just like an event in a park, when we have physical visitors, you're going to have folks that go on multiple programs. Here you've got folks that are going on multiple Facebook posts. Same way of thinking about it, just a slightly different mechanic. These were all pre-programmed. And they had, you can see they had a great impact. And what this meant was that Jocelyn could kind of let the stuff fly. The comments weren't that much to deal with. She's not being particularly provocative in terms of politics or that sort of topic where she might have to moderate all day. And instead, she can go out and fulfill her typical park ranger duties, giving programs the things that you typically think of during an event. And here, the Facebook kind of runs itself, at least for a few hours. It's all pre-programmed. We've seen this happen also in Diginterp community last summer. We worked on a number of posts for events when we kind of joined together for that MLK Dream, the moment of massive meaning that we tried to make happen with the March on Washington anniversary. And here's the 2 shares that happened from the NPS page. The one from Arches, that amazing photo of a cascade of water dissolving sandstone, just like Martin Luther King's floods of water flowing down like a mighty stream. And then over there on the right, you've got Fort Sumter with their opportunity to jump in on this the bandwagon of meaning with that hashtag in there. Both of these posts show the power of not only keeping an event within your park, but also taking the idea of that event outside of your park. If you're not typically a park that talks about the Mexican-American War, reach out to those parks that do. And not only ask them to share your content, but to join in the conversation to show their own content that you can share in as well. These are the moments when we can take our events outside our park boundaries and really start to collaborate outside. But that sort of collaboration is this type of thing that happens with planning, with pre-planning. You know, you contact Valley Forge and say, hey, we're having an event on the American Revolution, and we'd really love to build some meaning together with you. That's something that's going to take a couple days at least of lead time to make happen.
She's pretty flexible.
Well, yes. Stephanie's pretty flexible. We'll get to that in a few minutes. So now the other extreme. The other extreme is that informal opportunity, that bunch of rangers with iPhones. And here, this has some strengths to it as well. It's immediate. I mean, if you want your visitors from a distance to feel like they are in the moment, especially in the resource itself, this might be the way to go. It's immediate, and it offers these vibrant, kind of momentary, fleeting opportunities. Also feels timely. The reason that breaking news feels exciting is it's breaking. You don't necessarily see something that's 12 months old labeled as breaking news. And it doesn't have the same punch when you hear old news that you hear new news. These things are timely. And if you can give visitors the opportunity to feel like they're in the park at that moment, it could create some powerful meaning-making moments. It has a sense, especially if you have a large team doing this, that you can find multiple views. And I don't just mean multiple views like we typically think of multiple perspectives. I literally mean multiple views. That you can have many different sets of eyes across the resource, in many different corners of the resource, all of them capturing what's happening at the same time and posting it up immediately. Which means that I may be at one corner of the park and John may be at the other corner of the park, but the visitors feel like they're at both of them at the same time. And visitors that are in the park with their iPhone out, who can't be where John's standing, are there anyways as well. They feel like they're engaging not only where they're standing on the resource, but with the whole event as it's going on as a whole. But this also does mean that the typical multiple perspectives, the multiple ideas, multiple vantage points of an event, particularly when it comes down to kind of large beasts of events with many moving parts. When we're talking about grand landscapes, or when we're talking about grand historical events where thousands and thousands of people were involved, by scattering your staff across the park, across the resource, you can literally give multiple vantage points. This is collaboratively sourced in a different way than the pre-planned kind of formal interpretation. This is collaboratively sourced on the fly. So instead of working together in a Google document, planning out our coverage months in advance, we're collaboratively kind of internally crowdsourcing this as it happens, which is another way of collaborating. It's just a way of collaborating without as much of a filter on it. One of the things that this really that pushes towards is that this is clumped around activity. So it's letting visitors visit the park where stuff is already happening. And it cuts out some of the middle ground. I mean, oftentimes when we want to take visitors on really powerful experiences within resources, we walk them from here to there, to here to there, to here to there, to here to there. And we're really focused on the here and the there, and not the distance in between. And sometimes this is an opportunity to eliminate that distance in between and really punch up their opportunity to hit meaning, 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 and start finding really, really robust interpretive opportunities. And one of the things that having this wide-ranging team can do is it literally offers you a wide-ranging team. It offers you the casual tone of folks drafting things on the fly, posting them, especially if they're posting them from a first-person perspective. You may have to prep your visitors ahead of time that this is coming, but it could offer them really that opportunity to feel like they're within the park even when they're 1,000 miles away. What does this look like, this radical idea of this? Well, we don't see all that much of it happening within the Park Service. It happens in dribs and drabs in small events or small rangers that are just doing it for momentary posts. What could it look like? Well, maybe you take a photo on the fly of some bikers that are riding down an old path of pioneer settlement through craters of the moon. And you post, right after you take that photo, you hop on your Facebook, you hop on Twitter, and you just draft up the post right there. You say, you know, just like their forebears 120 years ago, these bikers are rolling through the desert. They're seeking the opportunity to relax, whereas the folks that came before were just trying to survive. I just drafted that on the fly. I hadn't actually thought of that, and I might type that into Twitter, might type that into Facebook, and send it on out there. And now, anybody that sees that post feels like they're standing there watching the bikers ride by. And, to some extent, they feel like they're standing there watching wagons roll by as well. Okay, so go back to those Martin Luther King posts. Imagine that you're standing there and the stream starts coming down, flowing like mighty waters. You're standing there literally watching the park flood before your eyes. That might be the opportunity, not just to say, avoid the road, it's washed out, but to talk about the power of nature as the power of nature is happening. These events can happen as soon as you drop your hat. A tree falls down in the forest. You are there to take a picture. You are there to make a sound. It could be an amazing opportunity to create some meaning for visitors. And basically, it's allowing folks from a distance to feel like they're physically present within the resource. And for the Martin Luther King one, you could take a picture literally of the event happening and talk about it. This could have the same exact interpretive message that, let's say, that the Fort Sumter one has. But it's obviously a photo taken from an iPhone right there in the place. You know that this is taken on the fly because this is happening right now. And suddenly I feel like I'm standing.
And the beauty of this one, too, though, of these kind of pieces, that especially this one, is, you know, we can't compete with the news media and these people, you know, as easily for something like this. But we can get the shots like that are in the field, that the ranger would capture, that the ranger is putting their emotion into this, and they're taking the picture through that event through a different perspective. Right. You know, and because this may be happening on our stage and everything else, but there's definitely bigger people with bigger cameras and a bigger mouth and bigger microphone. But we can, you know, be that person in the field and be that person on the ground at some of these events and let them relate their feelings and relate their thoughts. I probably just jumped into.
No, you're good. That's beautiful because C-SPAN has the shot.
Right.
C-SPAN has the shot of this day. I was standing there on the mall, but C-SPAN had the perfect shot. The perfect shot was the podium. But what the perfect shot didn't give you was the folks standing there. So this is our opportunity to join in the meaning making that's already happening for large events like this. So C-SPAN's going to have that great shot. They're going to have the podium shot. People are watching it, but they may have their phone in their hand when they're watching it, just to see what the rest of the folks are seeing that are standing there, that are physically witnessing it that day. You couldn't be there because you couldn't take the day off of work, but now you can. Not only with the TV running in the background as you listen to the speeches, but with the photos that the park is posting too. And this is the opportunity to capture that which you don't expect and really drive home meanings. This is the Basil Biggs farm at Gettysburg. And on July 2nd, a random thunderstorm came through on the 150th anniversary of the battlefield, or of the battle. And Basil Biggs was a black man who found opportunity because of the battle, because the battle dead. He bought that farm with proceeds he made from reburying the battle dead. Here's the 150th anniversary of the battle, and a rainbow appears above his farm, almost signifying to us that moment of change, that moment of opportunity. You put enough rangers out there in the field with iPhones and taking pictures and posting stuff on the fly like this, they're bound to catch a rainbow. They are bound to catch a flood. They're bound to catch that tree falling. And when they do, if you've got them tuned in with their interpretive mind, they're immediately going to start making those connections. Not simply, oh, look, a rainbow, but the rainbow connected to where it's standing finds amazingly powerful meaning.
And you know from our previous things that when we place more than just look at the rainbow over the farm, that those from pretty pictures, so you can go back to the YouTube stream if you want to learn that would get multiple, like doubling or tripling of the number of people looking at it, the number of likes, the number of interactions, and people sharing those feelings.
Right. Take the photo, layer on the meaning, and it's going to amp up what's happening. Okay, so those are the two extremes. There are hybrid models, and the hybrid models lie everywhere in between. And frankly, this is for you guys to figure out what works for your event, for what you're planning. And John and I were talking about one particular kind of hybrid model that might work, that you know what's going to be going on during your event. You might draft up your text ahead of time. And then when you get that photo that happens, you get those bikers riding down the trail, or you get the speech that's happening on the steps of the memorial, you just copy and paste the text in and use the photo from the moment. You've had the opportunity to draft and to think and to mull and to vet, and then you also have that immediacy of this is happening right now. So that's one axis of this concept. John, you want to take the other axis?
Sure.
Okay, I've got to stop sharing my screen.
Whoa.
There we go. Yeah, it was like recursion.
I will share mine.
There we go.
There we go. We're going to make it big. So, mine's a little different. You know, John and I always think about these things when we're planning them, and we go one way or the other. But of course, you know, events are large and small. You know, you have a small ranger program like you have here, and you have big events. you know, like the 4th of July on the National Mall. You know, all parks have these small and large events. You know, sometimes a program that just happens on the fly. Some parks do that all the time. You know, a ranger walks out, there's a program happening on the fly, or there's a scheduled program that's always the same. It's always at the same time every day during the summer. And then you have these big events. If it's the 4th of July at the National Mall, or a large, the town's big festival that happens on the park grounds, or the anniversary of the event that your park celebrates, those are all, you know, events. And they all happen in different ways. And there are different ways which we can advertise and talk about them and market them. But of course, you know, you're going to talk to me, we'll talk about a strategy. You know, we're going to talk about how we're going to think about how we're going to do this. You know, on one end, we know that some of our interpretation is going to be formal and informal, you know, based on what John was talking about. And then sometimes it's going to be really, you know, but it really needs to be based off of, you know, especially if it's a big event, what that strategy is. But even for a small event, you can have a strategy built around it. And that strategy can be written on the back of a cocktail napkin or just in your head for the size of the event to, you know, planned out in immense detail to 6-minute increments. So the real idea, the real thing is, you know, to talk about when you're developing or when you're talking about doing any of these things, from advertising in a newspaper, or you're advertising on your Facebook page, or you're putting it on a, you know, on the desk, you know, or if you're asking your local visitor bureau to put it on their calendar. How far in advance do you need to do those kind of things? How far in advance do I need to talk about it? Do I need to, you know, I certainly don't need to talk about the program, the small range program that's happening right now that happens every single day, you know, far in advance. And one way you want to make people aware of that, but you don't need to do it consistently. The other side of it, is it a regular event? We all know fireworks are going to go off on the National Mall on the 4th of July. I don't think it's the 5th usually.
But that one's really easy to plan, unless there's a rainstorm. Then you can't really, but
they still almost always have. But is it a regular event? You know, who do we want to come to this event? In some ways, I didn't put this in here, but, you know, it's an audience thing. I don't want to get too deep into the basic pieces, but it's an audience thing too. You know, who's coming? Is there local people, or are there non-visitors? You know, or are there regular visitors who need to travel? You know, if you're Yellowstone or Denali, like that previous picture, you know, a lot of times you don't have a large local audience that's just coming by. They have to plan. So they'd want to have it in their head that, oh, on Wednesdays they offer this special hike, and no other day of the week do we offer it. And so you need to figure out how we're going to use the techniques that John said to market our event for a big or a small piece. Who else do you involve? If it's a big event, when you involve our partners, our bureaus, our visitor bureaus. If it's a bigger event, you get Facebook groups or related pages. So this is going into that space, which we don't always pry into, but it's, you know, it's getting the parks around you. It's getting the parks, the Facebook groups that might be related or related pages that are part of your community. You know, maybe you're doing a birding program and there's a local birding group that has a page or a Twitter account. Or even maybe they have an email address on their website. You can send an email to the person to have them post your event. You know, there's lots of different ways. Sometimes, as many people tell me, when you're planning events, trying to get teachers involved, trying to get other people involved in things, sometimes you have to make sure that your audience that you're trying to target is using the media that you're doing.
really?
So sometimes you have to pick up the phone and call people to get things on the calendar, or you email them, or we can put them on Facebook.
So wait, what you're saying is that I have to make sure that the people that I want to talk to are where I want to talk to them.
Bang.
Okay.
That's right. And the other big piece, of course, is do we want to involve the national pages? Do we involve our national pages or our local, you know, other parks around us? You know, like the Martin Luther King event happened on the mall, but we made it a big national event, you know. So the other side of doing this strategy piece, and this may be a little, or I'll show you some of this in a minute, is really develop a look for it. There's a piece to doing strategy of when you're marketing a larger event or even a smaller event, just to make sure you're always talking in the same way to people, calling it the same thing, using the same keywords, using the same type in graphics in your video, on your poster, in your marketing piece, you know, basic marketing. Consistent photo. If you have 3 or 4 photos you're using or one photo, use that same photo over and over again. People, it's just like using a logo or another piece. You can use that for small events and big events. Consistency of photos, consistency of type. You know, even if, you know, when you use a regular MPS typeface, the way you lay it out on the photo, you do that on every single time you did a post. your message can change on the bottom and things like that, but it makes consistency. It makes it so that I see that and I go, oh yeah, that's happening. Oh yeah, that is happening. Oh yeah, that's the same thing that's happening. And prepare for visitor sharing. You know, plan those pieces out. Plan the hashtags. Plan the photo spots that you might put up in the park. Photo spots, you know, the places where they might share something. John actually, he didn't even mention, he did something at Antietam where he did a photo thing where he gave people cards and they could reshare the photo with a little hashtag on it. It was just a little experiment we did on the side. But you know, it worked really well. People were really interested in it. It's just something that you can do. Just provide a place for people to go, take a picture, share it, and put a hashtag on it. You can also do check-ins. You could have them do a Foursquare check-in. The other side of it, John talked about this a little bit, but it's pre-plan. You know, pre-plan a calendar of posting schedules way ahead of time. Before you do any of your media pushes. You know, include your media pushes, include your posts, include the way where you're going to put it, you know, make sure it's in there. Basic stuff. Pre-plan the live event content, you know, empower people on the ground. You know, the biggest thing is, you know, it's all well and good, and I'll say this to John, you know, because you guys hear me talking to John, it's all well and good to get rangers to, here's your iPhone, and to put them out in the field. But you have to pre-plan that content for them and pre-plan them so they feel like they're empowered to be able to post. So, you know, I send John down. You go down to Lower Town, around between 2 and 3, you're doing the post. Here's what we're thinking, but, you know, come up with it, talk to a ranger, and post it, depending on what's happening.
Right, it's like pre-planning but not pre-planning. It's a little bit of both.
Empowering you, though, because I expect to post it. You know, it's one of those pieces of the way these things can work. If you don't let people know when you expect or how they're going to post or what they could be posting about, you know, that you just, you can run into each other. You know, we can have double posts, which are dangerous because then you're just annoying people if you do 3 or 4 posts all on top of each other. You can also just, you know, it doesn't look, we don't want it to look planned, but we want it to be, you know, strategic and smart. You know, we don't want to plan too much. Now, if you're on Twitter, you can post a ton. You can just keep posting and posting and posting. But as we know on Facebook, you need to back off. You know, you got to post when you got a big event, you probably post every hour. Maybe at the largest part of the event, every half hour to 15 minutes. But don't go crazy.
Right. There's a couple of kind of caveats to that.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest one is warning folks that it's going to happen ahead of time.
Just tell them that there's an event.
So with Jocelyn, for Jocelyn post, she asked folks if they wanted to subscribe and to get notifications that the posts were coming in. She made sure that went in ahead of time. And they didn't lose any likes over the course of that day and a half. So nobody was oversaturated. She knew her audience, and she also kind of gave them that warning that this was going to happen.
And you can see it immediately, too. A lot of times you can start seeing unlikes immediately. So if you start seeing a lot of unlikes, it means something's happening. Sometimes it's not you posting. Sometimes it's, you know, I know in the past we've had issues of people just trying to post their entire event calendar at once. So if you're on your Facebook page right now, posting your entire event calendar there, don't do that. Because it'll just go all and post them like 18 times onto your Facebook page, and you'll lose a lot of likes because people just don't want to see all that kind of stuff. So traditionally, you know, and we started out with that just because, you know, it's something, you know, important. I think marketing an event and also marketing the social sharing piece in paper and posters on the desk is a very important part of our strategy for doing this. You know, it's just like when we hand out apps or anything else in parks. You know, it's hard to hand them out if they're not, if people don't have a piece of paper that tells them what the exact thing is. It's just like any event. And the other side of it is, you know, so this is my example for a little small event, is, you know, make posts that relate to the content. You don't have to post that we're having a wilderness talk at 3 o'clock. You can post a picture of the moose. I'm not going to I'll let John could interpret quick here, but I won't do it on the fly. But, you know, you have a post about a moose. You write a good interpretive piece about the moose and what you see, and then you can say, and you can see this on our wilderness hike that happens every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. And then you can hashtag, you know, this is from Denali Events. We just made that up. You have to think about it if that makes sense. But, you know, if you're consistent and you wanted people to be posting, why just make it about the Wednesday hike? If it was the regular recurring ranger programs, why not just make it hashtag ranger program or hashtag Denali program or hashtag Denali event? So think about that. So make a social calendar event. That means a social calendar event, I mean on Facebook or on the other, some other functions that you can use to make events, but the big one is on Facebook. But only do that for big events. That's a calendar event. Actually, we somewhat use it for these Diginterp things on Facebook groups, but other parks use them. But be careful of it. Don't oversaturate it.
Right, you wouldn't want to make one of those for the 3 o'clock program, the 4 o'clock program, the 5 o'clock program, and the 6 o'clock program.
Yeah, or any kind of regular recurring programs. You know, these are for bigger events. Make a hashtag. Start using it way before your event. That's one of the downfalls of most people using hashtags. And I'd say it's probably a downfall of, you know, whenever John and I probably used hashtags in the past too, is we don't prepare people ahead of time to get used to seeing that hashtag. Use it in all your related posts. Come up with it before you make your calendar thing, and stick with it. Stick to it. If you see one naturally come up in your events, use that. But if we can predefine the hashtags for our event, then we're way ahead of ourselves. You know, and especially if we can start using it ahead of our piece. So the one thing I was going to say, you know, one of the biggest things is pretty pictures with overlays. So that's what my little takeaway in this one is. You know, we found, you know, and this is funny because just planning this talk the other day, I was like, I saw this event that had this overlay picture, and John and I were talking about it the other day, and bang, it was right at Valley Forge. They had tried it, you know. Maybe if you are on Diginterp, you saw Stephanie talked about it, which we're going to get to in 1 second. And it's better than just the text there, right? And it got 12,000 views, which was huge. It was double about what and the other ones were. It came with a hashtag, which I believe this hashtag was the kind of the national hashtag to go with it, to raise it up. But this is our own thing, you know. It's very simple. You know, this is very KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Very simple, very easy. The beauty of this is when you reshare it and it pops up on somebody's page, even if they don't use your text or if they choose not to, they still get all the same text.
Right. And this is like a 5-10 minute Photoshop job too.
Right.
It's not that labor intensive.
It's like just the week before they did the same thing, and it was just a reshare with a link, but it didn't take you to anything. You know, it didn't have the overlays, it didn't have the things. Now that maybe they weren't trying to advertise it, I'm just going to show you the differences though. You know, that had 70 shares. This one had 160 or so shares. So almost over twice the number of shares.
Content's a little bit different subject too. I mean, an American flag is going to get some shares, John.
Yeah, come on. But this is a beautiful one. Now here's the downfall of some of these calendars on Facebook. And I've noticed this over time that they just haven't been that popular, and people don't really join the events. They don't really use the events feature on Facebook, even though, you know, we all see it all the time in our apps and things like that. It's just not a consistent. People, you know, it hasn't taken over for people inviting people to parties even, or doing e-invites and things like that. You know, it just hasn't gotten there. So this is just an example. You know, this only had 3 lights. It's because of the labeling it gets in your places. So I would be careful about just depending on that calendar. So this is just an example, and this is Michael Lang. Lang did this for his 30 days, 30 stories. I just wanted to show you that, you know, doing a graphic overlay across an image like this, just like Stephanie did on the other one, is very powerful, you know, and becomes, you know, when you look at all of them on this page, it becomes a piece of branding. It becomes a piece of secondary branding for this whole thing. And you can see if you did this with an event, or if you're planning a big event, just being consistent across all your pieces can make it feel like that event, because it, you know, it's that part of that marketing piece. It reminds you what it's there.
And those look like they're just dead simple plug and play.
They are. Yeah, I mean, they're not. You know, you come up with the basic design, and then you change in and out the graphics. Other things you can do, and a lot of people suggested, are make a video. They do that for the 4th of July on the mall. Do a Twitter interview, which is in between something I would say to do, but if you ever read about doing events online, they're out there. I don't find them to be that powerful, but some people do. So you can try. That's the other thing. Physical signs about sharing. You can tell people all you like on Twitter, but they probably don't like your page, or they probably don't like your feed. So you need a sign out there. If you want people to share you, you need a sign with a hashtag on it. So put your hashtags in pubs and signs. Now, don't, you know, make it the headline, but, you know, make it something that's out there so people realize that there is a hashtag and there is something that they can share, and ask them to share something too. Not just that, don't just put the hashtag on a sign, put take a picture here and share it, or here's a photo spot for today, for this event. This is where this happened.
But that does kind of go back to what we're seeing on television. I mean,
Yeah.
nearly every primetime program has a
In the
hashtag
corner.
down in the corner. Sometimes the hashtag changes between commercial breaks into something that have to do with what they're talking about.
So here's the last piece I'll put in, and this is the funny thing, John and I were talking about this earlier, is you need to use your NPS.gov events calendar feed. In the past, there was more of a pain to put in, and sometimes you didn't have a feed off of it. There's a lot of fixes that have happened recently. But if you go to anybody's page, if I go to a restaurant and it says it's closed, I'm probably not going.
Right.
If the museum, if I thought there was an event there because I saw it on their Facebook page, and I went to their museum website and their calendar was blank, I'd probably be like, doesn't look like they're probably having that event today, huh?
Yeah.
So fill out that calendar of events. Go in there and look at it. If you look in the lower right-hand corner on this slide even, you can see it says RSS feed. So you can, your partners and anybody else can grab that feed from your calendar and put it in. On this example from Harpers Ferry, they do have a PDF. Don't just make it a PDF, though. That isn't a feed. That isn't something I can look at easily on my phone. You can do it the PDF there as a secondary, but really the real data side of the feed is going to be really important to fill in the long term, because now people are going to start pulling our feeds. If we had a national feed and things like that in the long term, when those things happen, you're not going to be on it. Your park won't exist with events anymore. Those programs just won't happen.
Right.
Online,
creating a Word document, creating a PDF is not enough now.
Right. I mean, putting a feed in, even though this is the official place, and this is where people see those feeds and those events. And the beauty is you can click on that feed, so you can make your post on Facebook, and it can link directly to the event details that you have here, which is a huge. That's it takes them to the official place. It's like it's not taking them to another Facebook link or things like that. They know that it's really here.
Right. They see the .gov and it's reputable.
That's
they know
right.
this event is going to happen because it's got the full faith of the Arrowhead behind it.
There you go. Let me stop sharing. Did it do it?
You're good.
Okay.
Yep. So now we have one of our event superstars who's on the line with us. Stephanie, can you make sure you unmute?
Can you unmute?
Any luck?
Am I
There you
good?
go.
There we go. Now you're good.
Got it.
How's it going down there, Stephanie?
Pretty good. Planning 4th of July earlier. All those barbecues.
Hey. So, Stephanie, you do a lot of events. You're at Valley Forge, right?
Yep.
And so, what's your strategy with events? What do you aim for when you're trying to run a Facebook event, run a Twitter event, something like that?
So we do a lot of the pre-planning. We do the event day of planning, and we try and do some post-event communication as well. So I manage a lot of our website, our social media, and our public affairs. So we make sure that we're really integrated with everything. And anything that we're putting out, if we are using a hashtag, we put it on everything. Don't hate me if I say this, but I like to use Bitly to track all of our URLs. And I will actually pull that URL from the event page that we make on our CMS. And that way we can actually track how many people are clicking on it and from what source they're clicking on it and what time of day they're clicking on it. So we know if we see on Facebook that people tend to go on Facebook at Monday night at 9 o'clock, if that's consistent with the amount of clicks that are coming through on Bitly back to our page. So we do a lot of the tracking with it as well. As far as actually having people on the field during the event, what we've done successfully is have 3 to 4 different people take on different actual platforms or responsibilities. So for one of our biggest events that we had this winter, we had one person who was in charge of Instagram, and we wanted them to have at least 3 videos, and we already have that linked up to Twitter. So anything that goes through our Instagram automatically gets pushed out to Twitter. We had someone else in charge of taking photos so that we can put an album on our event later in the day. We had another person that was just in charge of posting maybe 2 or 3 times during the event for Facebook. But we did those pre-event pushes on Facebook, and we did the post album later. So.
Well, you guys are an interesting park that you're very connected with your partners, aren't you?
Yep. And at any opportunity we can, we tag them in all of our posts. We include them in our press releases. Anything that we can, we'll completely integrate them and tag them in.
Just, it's important to remember, because we're used to living in the world of, okay, let me share my government link, go.nps.gov, but those types of URL shorteners aren't necessarily going to work for our partners, especially. So we may have to, on occasion, use those types of things that you're using to track. You're kind of working around and helping to keep our system running, which is good.
We like those workarounds, and the good thing about Bitly is that when they shorten all of our links, they're not shortened to nps.gov, but it's usa.gov. So It's something still governmentally familiar.
Yeah, and that's the other side of it too. So you could still, so the usa.gov, it's like anything outside of anything that goes to a government link on Bitly will automatically go to usa.gov links. And you can still use usa.gov, go.usa.gov to make links as well. But you still can only do government links there. So the beauty of using the Bitly service, you can do that. But, we suggest you try to use the go.usa.gov, but you'll get the same kind of stats, which is really nice, because it is run by Bitly now. I mean, it's managed by Bitly.
Yeah, and one of the things that we'll try and do, if we have a recurring event every single year, we'll put it on our schedule of events page on the CMS, but we might make a separate page completely for it, and then we can still use the same URL every year and just change out the information, so we can track like how many hits we had on it one year versus how many hits we have on it another year.
And that means that you don't have to change all of the URLs that link to that from other places as well, which is always wonderful. It's great when you can have a persistent short URL and not necessarily have to make a new one for 2014, 2015, 2016 every single year.
So you hear something interesting from Stephanie, and what has she brought up multiple times today too, since we've been talking to her, is analytics in a lot of ways, right? Is how many people have come to it, how it's working, how effective it is, and she's tweaking it every single time. Every single event they have, she's changing her depending on what she saw last year from the previous event.
I mean, I'm assuming that you're going to probably do a lot more overlays on photos now.
Oh yeah, just the fact that everything is combined into one photo, and if someone wants to share it, all the information's there, whether they click on the link or not. They have the time, the date, and the location in one piece. It's awesome, and the amount of shares has just spiked incredibly, as opposed to just putting something up there with some text in the description. It's great.
Well, and it's one of the beautiful things about us being government is that we can't sponsor posts. I know that sounds weird, because we want to sometimes. We want to throw that $5 in and see if we can get 5,000 people to see something. But the wonderful thing about us being government is that we can't sponsor posts. And one of the things Facebook does is if a post has too much text on it, it will reject your ad campaign. Well, we aren't worried about ad campaigns, so we can put as much text on a photo as we want like that. Now, I wouldn't think you want to overdo it. You want to make sure that the important text is on there, but it's not a concern, which is kind of a relief to us. So, I mean, your flag photo, actually, Stephanie, probably would have failed Facebook's ad campaign, but because we're not worried about it, we're not worried about it. We can do anything we want.
And we still get that advantage of not, there is an advantage that we get because we are government. So people know that when even though we can't post ads and things like that, we're in a different tier in Facebook for the way the news feed reacts and things like that than a regular business that doesn't use ads.
So what do you got in the pipeline, Stephanie? What's coming up? What's exciting this summer?
Well, we have our 4th of July program that's going on, so we're starting to get some information out about that. And then throughout this entire summer, we've been posting about the hashtag Summer of Bugs. So if anyone has seen that, we've been using that hashtag, and we're actually having the Academy of Natural Sciences in Philadelphia also use that hashtag because they're our partners for the event. So at every opportunity, they are posting about our event, using our hashtag, tagging us, and we're doing the same, saying that they're our partners in the event. So we have one BioBlitz 24-hour weekend coming up in August, and we've been consistently talking about that since the last one in May.
Now, is that a standing partnership that you've had before, or is this something, a new thing that you're building with them?
This is specifically for this one project.
Cool.
Great.
Well, hopefully it continues on beyond that one project, because that's not necessarily something I think of with Valley Forge, is bugs.
No, you really wouldn't, but we have a really strong biology department, and this is our last data gap within the park. So what's really great about it is I got to talk to the media specialists and entomologists down at the academy, and they actually have a few entomologists that were out here in the park tweeting live as well for both their personal accounts and the academy's accounts. So we were posting all of that information in advance so that people could follow on whatever stream that they wanted to.
That's cool, and those hashtags really help you pull the content together, don't they?
Yeah, and it's kind of, I think it's catchy. Summer of Bugs, why not?
No, that's good.
It's good.
Yeah. So
It'll be fun to watch over the summer.
So besides Summer of Bugs, what should folks be watching for, or what should parks be looking for to share in their streams? What's your 4th of July plans? You gonna have folks out on the resource tweeting live, or?
I'm not sure exactly what we're going to be doing for that entirely. We're going to be doing a lot of artillery demonstrations, so we're going to be up there probably doing a couple live videos from that. But otherwise, one of the other things that people can latch onto throughout the entire summer is the 6 degrees NPS. If anyone's interested in that, that might be just a fun way to keep hashtags and tagging and things like that in our mind and fresh.
You want to explain what that is? Because I've been watching that kind of organically produce itself.
Sure, I'd love to. So it's kind of the idea that we're 401 different units, but we're all interrelated on some level, and we all have these different themes that go across our parks. So if you know something that is connected with like Fort Pulaski, then you would go ahead and talk to them and write some sort of interpretive post that connects the two of you using the hashtag 6 degrees NPS. And that way people that see your post from your park will see the post, and people from Fort Pulaski will see the post, and anyone who decides to follow 6 degrees NPS will see that post as well. So it's not anything specific, it's not on any sort of timeline, but if you have an idea, reach out to the other park and go ahead and post something, make something up.
And I can't remember who it was. I think there's a couple parks that are doing this one a week, and on a specific day of the week. So
I think Springfield Armory's been doing a lot of them.
that was who it was, because I remember because this tied in with the Boston stuff, and they actually did a 6 degrees Boston because they had a gun that was recovered from the battle.
Yeah, and it's a great way to just bring other parks that people might not recognize or might not just have in the back of their head to the forefront, especially with the centennial coming up.
It's a great idea, and make sure you guys start reaching out. We have DigInterp if you need more ideas, or if you have interesting things you want to reach out. If you don't know the actual social media person at the individual park, just stick in that these, we have these bugs that are at Valley Forge. Do you have them at your park? Do you want to do a post together? So, you take advantage of the community that we have to build these posts and to build that relationship. I mean, the 6 degrees NPS it's a great idea, and I'm sure it'll take off if we can all contribute. And certainly if we can get some folks to notice that hashtag too. Particularly, I'm thinking Kevin Bacon might be a fun one to try to loop into that. But maybe what parks are connected to Kevin Bacon? But play with that one, Stephanie. Yeah. Stephanie, we want to thank you for coming on today and showing us what Valley Forge is doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, we have just a couple more tickets to punch before we head out. One of them, John doesn't quite know about this one. I haven't brought him in on it. But our Distance Learning Center here at Mather is trying to find out what your connection speeds are from your computer, so we know how best to contact you, how best to get streaming video to you, what type of connection you have. So in DigInterp, you'll notice, I'll repin the post. It was pinned before, but I pinned today. But I will repin the post. You should see it at the top of DigInterp in about an hour or two. That post is a link to a Google form. Just fill out the Google form, just go to speed test and give us your ups and downs, and we'll be better able to figure out exactly how to get data to you. It's a real struggle we have, and we just have to figure out ways to overcome it. And they've got a whole cool plan going with satellites and cool technology and junction box. They were trying to discuss it with me. It didn't quite sync, but that's fine. As long as we can get the data to them, they'll be able to help you guys.
So Diginterp today was brought to you by the Distance Learning Center.
Yes, yes,
John
it was.
did a fantastic little plug there. Actually, next month, or in a month or two, we'll plan it out a little bit more, but we hope to show off some of that equipment, that rather than laptop 1 and laptop 2 and a little stand that John and I usually use. We'll try to be broadcast from the Death Star next time.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That base is fully operational right across the campus here. We're
That's
probably
right.
going to start using it. So, all right. Well, thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for joining us here on Diginterp, all you folks out there. Keep on interpreting, keep on meaning making. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.